This man is right now, he's the most overrated in basketball.
Look, for the second straight year, they have the best record in the NBA, and for the second straight year, they're not going to the NBA Finals.
I remember somebody talking about how Giannis was going to dunk his way through the playoffs and yada, yada, yada. Listen, this
Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions once again.
What happens when one of the most loyal superstars in the modern NBA finds himself on a team with no clear future? What happens when the franchise that once gave him everything suddenly can't give him what matters most? A real shot at winning. This isn't just a roster problem. This isn't just about cap space or trades. This is the true test of everything Giannis Antetokounmpo has ever stood for. Welcome to the most pivotal offseason of his career, and maybe the defining moment in the history of the Milwaukee Bucks. The future of the Milwaukee Bucks has been hanging in the balance, especially after a devastating Achilles injury sidelined Damian Lillard.
In 2014, Forbes released their most valuable NBA franchise list, and at the very bottom was the Milwaukee Bucks.
You really want to be in Milwaukee? Is that where you want to be?
But amid the uncertainty, speculation, and swirling trade rumors, there's one central figure whose decisions will shape the destiny of the franchise: Giannis Antetokounmpo. For years now, Giannis has stood as the heart and soul of the Bucks, an emblem of what it means to build a team organically, to grow with a city, and to carry the weight of expectation with humility and resolve. But now, more than ever, questions are mounting about whether that loyalty has a limit. The Bucks were already teetering on the edge before Lillard's injury. The team had slipped from title contention to something closer to a fringe playoff threat, kept afloat primarily by the superhuman efforts of Giannis. Even before Lillard went down, Milwaukee's roster construction was under scrutiny. They lacked youthful talent, didn't have draft picks to retool, and were aging fast. Giannis's greatness masked those issues. His MVP caliber performances papered over the fact that Milwaukee's supporting cast lacked both depth and dynamism. When the front office traded Chris Middleton mid-season in a controversial move that brought in Kyle Kuzma, it was seen not as a win-now push, but more like a desperate reshuffle. And then came the worst-case scenario: Damian Lillard's Achilles injury. Not only does this take him out for the entire upcoming season, but it also casts a long shadow over his career. When he returns, he'll be 36, a guard relying on quickness and agility, now coming off one of the most debilitating injuries in sports. Add to that a massive contract, and you've got a major roadblock in the Bucks' path forward. So here we are, Milwaukee stuck, no picks, no young stars, no real path back to championship contention. And that's what brings us to Giannis. Each offseason, we talk about trade rumors: Miami, Dallas, the Lakers, the Knicks. But this time, it's not just noise. For the first time, it feels real. The dilemma is clear. Can Giannis continue to commit to a team that cannot promise him another legitimate run at a title? With Lillard out, with the roster unbalanced, the honest answer is no. But here's the twist. Giannis isn't wired like most NBA superstars. He's not a player chasing super teams or marketing deals in major cities. He's always talked about loyalty, about building a legacy the hard way. Milwaukee gave him a chance, and he gave them everything in return. That kind of bond isn't broken easily. So while the basketball logic points to a trade, the emotional reality is more complicated. Giannis has unfinished business in Milwaukee. He's not someone to abandon ship the moment things get hard. He didn't leave when the Bucks lost in the playoffs year after year. He didn't leave before winning a title. He stayed, believed, and delivered. And maybe, just maybe, he'll do it again. What makes this scenario different is the depth of the challenge. The Bucks aren't just retooling. They'd need a full rebuild to truly reset. Giannis would have to accept years of mediocrity or ask to be traded to chase rings elsewhere. And that's what makes his next decision so pivotal. Would staying mean sacrificing his prime years on a roster that's simply not good enough? Or does he double down on loyalty, trusting that the front office can pull off a miracle? That brings us to potential trade destinations. The Lakers, the Clippers, they sound great on paper, but they don't have the assets. The Knicks? Maybe Karl Anthony Towns and filler. It's not enough. Miami? Lacking in picks and young players. Brooklyn? Cap flexibility, a good draft pick, but no guarantee of a contender. Houston and San Antonio could offer better packages, but would Giannis want to go? OKC is interesting. They have picks, young talent, and a top-tier guard in SGA. But does Giannis want to join a market like that, even if the basketball fit is great? So the list of possible suitors shrinks quickly. Which brings us back to Milwaukee. It's not about where Giannis should go, it's about whether he'll go at all. And that's the real story. Giannis' loyalty is tested not by failure, but by futility. He's not losing in the playoffs. He's looking at a team that can't get there anymore. His contract gives him leverage, but his heart may still be tied to the city that embraced him. And don't forget, the Bucks can't tank. They don't own their own picks. Trading Giannis for draft capital may not help. So what's the incentive? Any deal would have to bring back real players, guys who keep Milwaukee respectable. That's why this decision is bigger than just Giannis. It's about the identity of the franchise, the philosophy of loyalty, and what it truly means to build, not buy, a championship legacy. So as this offseason unfolds, keep your eyes on Milwaukee. Not for what they'll do, but for what Giannis will decide. Because the real story isn't about where he'll go next. It's about whether he's ready to leave at all. But zooming out, Giannis' decision speaks to something deeper. A changing culture in the NBA where players are forced to choose between personal legacy and championship contention. Can loyalty survive in a league built on mobility? Is there still room for a superstar to stay rooted in one city for their entire career, even as the team around them changes? Giannis represents something rare: patience, humility, and perseverance. He didn't enter the league with fanfare. He developed year by year. And so, even now, as the easy option would be to leave, we shouldn't assume he'll take it. The next few months may define the remainder of Giannis' career and reshape how we define greatness. So, what would a true rebuild look like in Milwaukee if Giannis stays? It starts with youth. The Bucks would need to identify undervalued young players around the league, perhaps swing on players in restricted free agency, or explore trades with teams entering their own rebuilding phases. They'd need to leverage Giannis' presence to attract hungry, younger talent willing to develop around him. In essence, Giannis would be the mentor, the bridge between eras. Milwaukee's scouting department would become more important than ever. Second-round picks, undrafted free agents, European talents. Every opportunity to bring in a high-upside player becomes critical. Giannis has proven he can lead, but he can't do it alone. He needs energy, length, and shooting around him. He needs teammates that complement his skill set. The Bucks must find those players, not overpay aging veterans past their prime. Another avenue is the coaching staff. If Milwaukee is serious about building around Giannis again, they may have to reimagine the entire basketball philosophy. A coach with a developmental focus and a system that maximizes athleticism, tempo, and spacing would unlock a more modern, resilient version of the Bucks. Think of what Eric Spoelstra did in Miami post-LeBron, building a program, not just a team. But Giannis' decision doesn't exist in a vacuum. Other stars are watching. Players around the league respect Giannis. If he stays, if he recommits to Milwaukee even when it seems foolish, what message does that send? Maybe loyalty still matters? Maybe super teams aren't the only path to success. Compare that to what happened with Dirk Nowitzki in Dallas. Dirk stayed, he waited, he endured years of disappointment before 2011 when everything clicked and the Mavericks won it all. No one questions Dirk's legacy. In fact, his loyalty became part of it. If Giannis stays and somehow manages to guide Milwaukee back to the mountaintop, the story becomes legendary. But the flip side is just as powerful. If he leaves, it won't be betrayal. It will be evolution. Even Tim Duncan had better infrastructure. Even Kobe Bryant, another model of loyalty, had the full might of the Lakers' front office behind him. Giannis doesn't have that right now. So walking away could be seen not as disloyalty, but survival. This isn't just about the next chapter of Giannis' career. It's about what kind of league the NBA is becoming. In an era where players have more control than ever before, how they use it says everything. Giannis' decision, whatever it is, will speak louder than any press conference ever could. And Milwaukee, they will forever be tied to him, whether as the city where he rose and fell, or the one where he stood tall no matter what. Either way, the bond between player and city is unbreakable. That's why the world is watching. That's why this matters, because this isn't just a basketball story. It's the story of belief, of faith, of one man, one team, one city, and the legacy they may still build together.